Google just released their newest image generation model called Nano Banana, and it literally broke the internet. I'm playing around with new models, frameworks every other day, and I will say it, this is probably the best model that has come out this year. It's basically like using Photoshop using plain language. A lot of people are going to make a lot of money using this model, and that's why I'm super excited to show you in this video how you can build your first SaaS using the Nano Banana model and how you can start charging money for it. And don't worry, if you're new to coding, we're going to be vibe coding everything, and I will share the code in the comments below so that you can start using it right away. So here's the plan. First, we're going to go to Google AI Studio, and I will show you what the model is capable of. Then we're going to set up our coding environment, and we're going to run the Nano Banana model from our computer. And then we're going to introduce our functionality where we're going to be generating product listings in bulk, putting clothes on model. And then we're going to add nice UI using v0 that we connect to our script. All right, so let's go. Right, so step one now, we are on Google AI Studio. So you just go over to aistudio.google.com. Then you're going to see this button called Try Nano Banana. Basically here, I mean, you have a placeholder. If we just run it, it's a very random picture. The first feature that is very good with Nano Banana is that we can iterate on the existing images. So replace hat of captain with a sombrero. Good. Captain dance with mariachis. So as you can see now, it iterated. It's super random, but it worked quite okay. So that's one thing. And then what's quite nice is also if I upload a file and I just go over here and I say, okay, this is a picture of a hat that I have. So now I'm just going to add the picture of a hat of a dress. Let's say this is the yellow dress. All right, so now you can see that the captain is wearing this dress. So what's very powerful is that it keeps the context from previous iterations. So we have the mariachis, it's adding the dress. So as you can imagine, and here we uploaded a picture, we prompted, so it opens so many possibilities in terms of iteration, possible use cases on how to use this new model. I'm going to show you a last one. This person post the math in the boat. So this is a bit random. Didn't work super well, but as you can see, it identified the mat on the image, that person, and it kept everything else on the image. So we can start iterating, and now I'm going to show you how we can actually run this model directly from our computer. We're going to set up our coding environment to do that. So now we're moving on to step 2. Right, so now I'm going to move over to Cursor. If you don't already have Cursor, you can just download the Mac app. But if I just hop over to Cursor, I basically have 2 folders here. We have backend, where we're going to introduce all the functionality using the Banana model. And we have the front end, where we're going to be importing all the code that we would generate from v0 later on. v0 is just a tool that helps us generate a nice UI for our app. Great. So in order for us to run the backend here, we have a couple of things that we need to do. So the first thing that we need to do is to actually import our API key from Google AI Studio to then add it here and create an environment in our Google Cloud platform. Maybe this sounds a little bit intimidating, but I'm going to show you every single step. So the way it works is if we go back to where we were initially, so this is our thread. Basically what you can see here, what they have is this thing called get code. So I'm just going to cancel the session because it just keeps the code for the whole interaction, which is not super useful. Okay. So I'm just going to basically get the code here. As you can see, this is the code. So I'm just going to copy it over here. And in our backend, I'm going to create a new file, call it banana.py. So we're going to keep this here, Google-Gen AI. So I'm going to show you how you can install all these packages. What we also need to do is basically you need to go to google.cloud.google.com. And then essentially here, you would have to create a new project. You would give it a name, the organization or whatever. In my case, I already have a project. And what you need to do then is the following. So basically, we need to create a project, like I said. So this is step 1. Then we need to go over to Vertex. Vertex is basically all the different AI related features within Google. So if I go over to Vertex AI, you can see you have to select the one with API, click enable. Perfect. Then we can go back here. Essentially what you can see here is get API key. So you can create an API key here, add it to my project, create API in existing project. So this is just, the project that we've just created. And then basically you have an environment variable. You're going to have access to all the codes. You can just import or download the code and just set it up. So here what we're going to do is put the Gemini API key here. Then we're going to set Vertex AI to true. This is important also to be able to access those AI features. And then here, the project ID is just the project that we've just created. If you go back to the main page, you can see the project ID is this one. I'm going to add it there. Central US, this is just server. It's basically going to run the Gemini model. This imports OS. We're going to import .env, which allows us to then import the Gemini key from the environment variable. You can see here that we have the model. So this is just like the boilerplate. We call it like the starter base for us to run the banana model. So essentially what it's going to do is just generate an image of a banana wearing the costume. So this is basically going to generate what we saw earlier. Just before we run that, what you need to do is we basically have to download some packages. So all you need to do is just copy those commands. So first of all, we need to create a virtual environment and install all the different libraries that we need. Then you need to activate it. So this is basically how we've named this. Pip install our requirements. And basically what it's going to do is install all these libraries. So as you can see, we have Google Gen AI, and then we have additional ones, which we will be later on. And I will show you as we go on why we need them. But so if I just run the command, okay, it's not from the right folder. So you just CD allows you to get into the backend folder, which is this one. Perfect. So then what you can do is say Python banana, run it. Okay, here's a banana wearing a costume. Perfect. Got generated. And there we go. This is the image that we just saw from our computer. Something that we can use directly within Cursor. So now step 3 will be to actually create this script, which will allow us to create product listings. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. All right. So before I dive into the code, I just want to quickly show you in a diagram what we're going to build. So essentially what we're going to have is a set of import sources. We're going to get clothing, images, and model images. And we're going to pass them to the model and tell the model, okay, create one picture from 4 different angles of the model wearing the piece of clothing in question. So, in this case, we would be taking this random picture of a hat, add it onto this model, and then it would generate quite this one wearing that. So as you can see, it looks fairly realistic. It's quite perfect. So now let's go to Cursor and prompt that to the LLM to update the code that we already have. Just in the documentation, just to show you basically what we need. What we need is to actually import an image that we can then pass in the prompt. So as you can see here, we have the prompt and the image. So this is basically what we're going to do. So this is where the magic happens. Basically, I'm going to copy paste the code, and I'm going to tell the LLM here, you can just use specify which script you want to modify, banana, and I'm going to say, I want you to update the script that will take images parameters. Loading model will take loading image and wants rate. See what the model wearing that piece of clothing. The image should hold it list for angles. Piece of clothing. Okay. Here is how you can pass the image prompt together with them. Now I'm just copy pasting the code, and let's see what the model is going to understand. Then we can iterate. Quite nice now in Cursor is that it generates those to-dos and it's going to do everything step by step. In the meantime, what we can do is already plan ahead and create a folder to make it more manageable, where we're going to add images of the piece of clothing that we want the model to go through and the model. So I'm just going to create this clothes, create another folder called model, and then I'm going to create a folder called output. And so this is just going to be more manageable for us to handle everything. We can already import the images. So I'm going to add clothes, the hat we saw earlier. Then I'm going to add the model folder, right? And then the output is where we're going to generate the images. Yeah. Now you can see it's still running. Response modalities. So generating text and image. Now it's good path. Here's where the clothing stored. So this is the folder where we're storing all the clothes. Sometimes with Cursor, you need to click on it once for it to recognize it. Then file, and you add model or model. Then put it image in. Sometimes it doesn't get recognized because there is no folder with path. So you can just specify the path and update script. Perfect. So now we can see that it actually generated the image. You can see that we have the model wearing the hat, still not super realistic. Right. So I'm just going to tweak the prompt and reuse one that works. Create a sharp, and then this is just specifying how the image handles. We run it. Awesome. So now we have the image from 4 different angles with the face that looks fairly realistic. And this is basically like a product listing. As you can imagine, we can run this in bulk, and this is how we're going to proceed by building our app. Right. So let's go back to the drawing board. Now we have this image, and what we want to do next is, as part of a product listing, we obviously don't have an image that we can generate. We also want to have a description. So what we're going to do now is just introduce also the Gemini model that can understand the image and analyze it. So understand image. So this is also just a workflow. And then we're generate listing. And then listing would basically have the product description. We have perfect. So now this is basically what we're going to build. So basically what this means is if we go back to the developer documentation, you can see that we have all the different core capabilities here with the Gemini model. What we're gonna look at is, in this case, image understanding. You can see here we have document, video understanding. So lots of other videos, great. Passing inline image data. So here you're basically saying, okay, we're gonna pass the local image and we're gonna analyze it. And basically we're gonna define, what's the format of the image and how it should be analyzed. What is this image, right? So what we're gonna do is copy paste this thing again, go back here, and we're gonna say extend functionality of script writer and introduce image understanding functionality. What we're going to do is we're not going to ask it to analyze the outputted image. We're going to ask it to understand the piece of clothing because it's not really necessary to analyze the output. So analyze the clothing piece that gets passed as parameter to image generation model. Understand what it is and structure code with following fields. Description of item, tag item. So it could be texture, color, type, etc. And here it works, right? So I just want to specify start mode workflow should be right image then shape output using Pydantic models and print results in console. Awesome. So now you can see that it's running. So it returned the description and the tags, right? And if we look at the image, it got generated again, relevant, but it tells you, okay, tags identified, 18 tags, and that's it. So now what's very exciting is that we can reuse the description, the tags, the image, and evaluate this listing that we want. If we go to the top, basically what we're saying is this structured output. So Pydantic models help us structure the output. This is also very powerful with Gemini. You force it with outputs. So the clothing analysis is returning a description and a list of tags. So both of them are strings. So we actually display them on our front end later. All right, so now let's get to the fun stuff. I am on V0 to generate the nice UI. This is all going to be coded in TypeScript, and then we're going to connect it to the Banana workflow by script that we just created. So let's just prompt what we want. So basically what we want is an upload model where we can upload the images, right? So of the clothing, of the model, and then we want to hit run or like press run. And this should actually return the product card with the image, the description, and the tag. So what we're going to say is let's build a simple one-page tool where we can upload images. Start workflow. And to generate the image. And so we're going to take this now. All right, perfect. So it just got generated. So upload image. You see now clothing, say address, model, we're after the product card. Now, obviously, it's all made up card, boom, and it's adding the tags, the description. Perfect. So now let's go and import this code, this command. Now, so now I'm back in Cursor. I'm going to go in my front-end folder and I'm going to install it there. So it's super simple. Run this one single command. We're going to call it demo. Here it's asking you for the basic settings, but neutral. Here we're just saying yes. All right, so now we're gonna run what we just saw from our local server. So what you need to do is go in the demo folder, and you're gonna run this command npm run dev just to kickstart the local server for Next.js. Now here, perfect. So now it's running on local 3000. We can upload the image, but as you can imagine, right now it's not connected to our brain, which is the backend. In order to do that, we're gonna build our backend, and we're gonna use Fast API, which will allow us to create the API endpoints that we will hit from the front ends or basically from here, from localhost 3000. We're going to hit our backend server. It's going to kick off the workflow where it's going to take the clothing image, the model image, and return us the product part. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now we are back in Cursor. So we have the front end folder with demo, with the front end running on localhost 3000. Now we basically need to do something similar where we're going to run on a different server, the backend, localhost 8000. And more importantly, what we need to do is to create the data. We need to basically create a post request. A post request is basically going to be sent to the Fast API to kickstart the Banana workflow. We're going to send the request, okay, hey, run the workflow. And then we're gonna return the response on our front. So this is basically what we're gonna do. There will be a little bit of prompting, but I will show you basically the major blocks. So basically we need 3 major blocks. The first one is to create Fast API, connect script to Fast API. Then we need to run Fast API backend server, connect. Then we need to connect the front end to Fast API via stores. Stores are global state management, which basically means that if we want to display the results from this banana workflow in different parts of our app, we don't want to run and hit this endpoint and this workflow every time. As you can imagine, it uses a lot of memory, a lot of money, and this is just not best practice. So we're going to make sure it's manageable so that you can reuse the code and build like more complex stuff later on. So if we just go over to each step, so now we're basically going to create this Fast API and we're going to connect script to it. So what we're going to do is if we go back to the backend, we're just going to create a file called api.py. This is where we're going to add everything. And I'm going to say create Fast API backend server in API, right? Which will allow us to run post requests to kickstart flow. Put me through each step before the code. Importantly, force policy should run. So this is just to ensure that not everyone can hit our local server, only the local host, which is running on our local computer. So it is running. Now what we're going to do is try to run it programmatically, meaning that we're going to run URL command, give the URL command to run it. Perfect. So you can see it returned success with the product description and the tags, as well as with the object that got saved, right? So the image path, image URL. So this will allow us to then display the generated image on our front end. That is for now, obviously running locally. So the image is here. Perfect. So what we're going to do now is connect this backend, which is running, to our front end. And to do that, what we're going to do is go over to the front end and just add here first.ts. And we're going to say add connect backend to front end via store a front end. Just a bit cleaner. Usually you would have your API endpoints also in the front end folder, but we're basically just creating this quickly. Go to API. Sure. Meters. Returning the post request generated. So we have the product card. So those are just basically different objects that we can display on our front end. And this means that we can reuse them in different places across our app. Here we just have a single page. And then this is basically all the different actions that we can do. So generate product card, clear card. This is basically where we're going to hit the endpoint. So as you can see, generate simple. It's basically going to take the last image that we're going to pass it to. It's going to be a post request, so meaning that it's going to kickstart the workflow. Then it's going to extract the product name and our price, which is pretty interesting. Very like some sophisticated approach to basically come up with like a price to display on the card. We didn't ask for that, but came up with it. But so it's fun to see how the LLM thinks about these things. And then it's returning the a unique ID. Now, if we go to the page, basically importing from the stores, see here, use product store, product card, and then it's basically just going to deconstruct the elements that we have received from the API response and then display it on the page. If it worked, yeah, let's start. So as you can see now, I press generating. So I guess it took the image that we have. See here, generate simple. So it's just basically like the most recent image in our folders. And that's it. You can see that now we have the product description. It came up with the product title with the 4 different angles, gave it a description with the different tags. So you can organize your products like that. It even gave it a price. Quite amazing. And yeah, this is still not ideal. So basically what we want to do now is to refine the script so that we can actually upload images directly from the front end and use that as context for the LLM to generate a new listing. Try again. So we're going to add a clothing image. So let's try to add something different. So what do we have? Let's go ahead with the dress, right? The yellow dress. And the model, we're just going to keep that same image, generate product card. Now it's running. So you can see that now I generated the model with the dress, maxi skirt, or skirting the word dress all along with the description, the price, and that's it. Then eventually you could just run like multiple ones, export all the generated images, and just bulk import that wherever you need to upload your products. So let's say you have 200 new products, a new collection, you could just create a new variant using Gemini, and then just push your e-commerce store on Shopify or whatever. So let's just quickly go over the code. So basically what it did in the last changes is in Banana PI. So basically here it's uploading the clothing image pass, model image pass, and then the output file name. And it's basically saying exactly how to handle all the information. It's passing it through the prompt. Then we have this folder temporary uploads where everything gets treated. Then on the front end, what we have is in stores, we're saying, okay, generate a product listing. And then we're basically returning the product name. We're generating a price. We're mapping the API response to whatever we want to display on the front end. So generate price, extract product name. Those are like two things on the front end happening directly. Then tags are just clothing analysis, which is our function, and it's returning it's the object clothing analysis, and then we're using tags. So this is basically what we're using. And then finally, on the front end, we have the main content, model state generated cards, and then you can see your AI generated product cards already. This is this part. And then it's basically deconstructing the image. So we have the model image, which is coming from the card. Then we have all the different tags map, and it's iterating through each of them. And we have the product name, the product price. So this is basically the store that that connected and made the call to the backend API endpoint. And then once it returned the response, it then deconstructed the element, and we don't need to call the API every time. We can just display it directly on the page without doing it every time. And then finally, if I go back to my API script, so like we said, we have the structured output and the different functions to help us handle the files, so self-saving, cleaning up the temporary file folder so that we can start it all over again every time. And then we have this generate product listing endpoint that gets hit by the front end here, just with comments on the purpose of this endpoint. And basically, as you can see, it's returning this product listing response. That's the response model. So every time we're hitting this post, it's basically running this function, and this function is basically through everything. So it's first analyzing the clothing, then it's generating the image, and finally it's returning the response, which is the product listing response with all the information. So description, tags, image URL, which allows us to then display the results on the front. Awesome. So you just learned how to build your first full stack application using the Nano Banana model. There are so many other use cases I could cover, but I think you should just start playing around with it. Like I said, all the code is in the description of the video below. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And if you need more help to implement AI, you can also book a session with me below. I'd be happy to help.